how to craft high converting ads that get rich people flocking to you like moths to a flame and turns every $1 you put in into 2, 5, or even $10 in 30 days or less. Now, I just wanted to show you guys some numbers real quick, just so that you know that I'm not full of shit. But basically, these are like my own numbers from about 2022 in terms of advertising. So in total, for the actual tax planning agency, I spent about 90 grand over the past 12 months or so. And then before that, I spent about 30 grand on my restaurant marketing agency. Now, for whatever reason, I could not actually, I had another ad account. I think I changed the name on it though, because I can't find it. But I actually spent more on the restaurant advertising agency. So I think there was maybe another ad account with like another 30 grand. And then this is from my credit card processing. You can see from about June 26th of 2022. So I did about 1.14 mil in gross, 1.09 in net during that time. And the majority of everything that came from this came from the ads. So yeah, we had a few referrals here and there. I did cold outbound, but a majority of the revenue that I create from my own business comes through paid advertising. So if there's one thing that I probably know how to do pretty well, it is paid ads. And here's what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go over how I actually not discovered, but really refined the paid advertising. We're going to go over the only point of an ad, the 2 types of advertising, the death of interest targeting and best targeting practices. This needs to say 2025. Demographic versus psychographic, the anatomy of a successful ad, what elements to test first. And then I have some copy and paste ad scripts, swipes for you guys. And I also have some recommended reading. So any questions before we dive in?
Nope.
All right, let's do it. So when I first started my agency, I learned advertising when I was a general manager of the martial arts school that I trained at. And so basically everything that they had done up until that point was all grassroots marketing, right? And it was great when the Karate Kid was on the big screen because that did all the advertising for you, especially when you're the only karate school in the area. So we tried, but we had some competitors come into the market. And unfortunately, what worked back then didn't work as well as it did when you have 6 karate schools on every single block. And so things were starting to trickle, right? And like we were kind of at a break-even pace in terms of we'd get a customer, we'd lose a customer, we'd get a student, we'd lose a student, And so we knew this guy up in the Northeast, and we would absolutely crush him every time we would go to tournaments. But he had a waiting line to get into his school. So we were like, okay, clearly this is not just like whoever has the best product wins, right? And so we reached out to him because he was not in the same area as us. And we were like, hey, man, what are you doing? And he said, oh, it's Facebook ads. And we're like, what do you mean? You go and like poke somebody on Facebook and comment on their wall? Because this was back in 2015, right? This was about 10 years ago. And so he was like, no. You can put ads in front of moms in your local area telling them about your martial arts school. And we were like, huh, okay. So he pointed us in the direction of the consultant that had basically made all these copy and paste ads for the karate schools. So we went and we started working with him, and it was like overnight, right? We had gone from barely getting drips of water out of our sink, let's call it, to a freaking fire hose. Like that's what it turned into overnight. So fast forward, right? I had basically, sharpened my teeth on the karate school and marketing, and I was about 21, and I decided to go my separate way. Long story short, we couldn't agree on numbers. I was going to plan on opening a karate school, and literally the guy who was like my father figure. So for those of you who don't know, I actually have 2 moms, right? My moms were lesbians. I was artificially inseminated. I was a petri dish baby. And so my martial arts instructor growing up, he was like my father figure, right? From the time that I was a wee little lad walking in with 2 left feet, right? He was the guy that, supported me, was like a dad to me. And when I told him that I was going to go do my own thing because we couldn't get the numbers, squared away, he basically told me that I was never going to make it and that I didn't know what I was getting myself into with business. And so I had this huge chip on my shoulder, right? And that wasn't like the first time that somebody doubted me. When your own essential parent is like, yeah, you're not going to make it. After telling me this whole time, you can do anything you want. If you can get your black belt, you can do anything, right? And then the same guy turns around because I was basically like the guy, right? I was like his head honcho in terms of running his business for him, right? And I'm sure, he was trying to do what he knew to get me to stay, but it's like, really? You're gonna raise me like that and then tell me that I can't do something? All right, man, I'm gonna show you, right? So I went out on my own, and I was supposed to be this paid ads guy because I knew, how to market a martial arts school. But I quickly realized that getting clients B2B is way different than getting B2C clients, right? Marketing your kids' martial arts to boost their confidence is way different than trying to get somebody to fork over $2,000 a month, let's say, is what I was charging at the time. So anyway, this is actually Brendan. He was my business partner at the time, and he was in school when we both started it. So we didn't know what we were doing, but we basically decided to start this agency because we didn't have any money, and drop shipping, e-commerce, all this stuff. Like, you need money in order to start that stuff. So we were actually on a trip to Vegas, and the night before, a Yellow Pages book came and landed on my doorstep. Anybody here still get Yellow Pages?
Nope.
Nada, right? They're like non-existent. So I got this Yellow Pages book and I take it with me to the airport the next day. And I'm like, hey, Brendan, come here. I want to show you this thing. And he's like, listen, dude, whatever drugs you are bringing to Las Vegas, I want no part of it. I was like, no, man, it's not that. I promise the dogs aren't going to sniff us out. Okay. And I showed him this and I was like, hey, this is our lead list. Like, this is the people that we can call to be potential clients. So anyway, long story short, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We just started emailing away, and literally on the balcony of the Cosmopolitan, while his girlfriend and the other girls were getting ready, we were just picking up the phone and we were calling. We were saying, hey, do you need Facebook ads? Hey, do you need Facebook ads? Hey, do you need Facebook ads? And we started on the right side of the phone, because after like our 30th call, where we were like, oh man, we're really getting nowhere with this. After our 30th call, the guy was like, oh yeah, I actually need Facebook ads. So we went back to Kansas City, right? After the trip, we met this guy, signed him, and we were like, we're in business. And this was for like $400, $500 a month, right? But that's what we started to do. We would just cold call local businesses in the area. And while it was great, it was highly, highly inefficient. You can see this is actually us at a networking event. Has anybody tried to go to a networking event before to get some clients? Now, Mark actually hosts them. Is Mark still on here?
Yeah, I'm actually going to stop hosting most of them. We're going to merge two groups that I help host, see if it does anything, but I'm finding it's not the most effective thing to do with my time when I could be doing things in the digital world and having a greater impact.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like person to person, right? Nose to nose, toes to toes is great, right? Like, it's a great way to build relationships. In fact, me and Alan were just talking about it there. I was like, what marketing company do you know that will like actually, drive out 3 hours to meet you in order to make sure that it works, right? So there's a huge person-to-person element that you can't get in the digital space. But I mean, man, think about BNI. Like, do you guys know who goes to BNI meetings?
Yeah, we have, by the way, we have Nick's been going to it. We haven't gotten a single client from it yet. It's been like,
because they're all there trying to get clients. Yeah. And the people who go to BNI are just starting out in business, right? So like, Nick's probably not even going to find the right people in the room to begin with. Because as soon as you finish telling them what you do, they're like down their throat or down your throat about what they do, right? So anyway, I'd known that there were other people there that are out there that were running these paid ads. I'd seen other agencies doing it. And as you guys, I'm sure you guys remember, right? A book called $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. And like everybody was starting to run these offers. So I was like, okay, let me test this out. So between him and Russell Brunson, right? I started running these paid ads. And this was like before I knew, the persuasion, writing dangerously persuasive presentations. Like all I wanted was I just wanted appointments on the calendar. Because either way, right, when I was cold calling, I was really only getting like 1 to 2 appointments per day. Okay. And that's not even people who showed up to the appointment. That was just people who were like, yeah, I'll meet with you. And so while it was great because it was cost effective, right, I was limited by the amount of people that I could cold call in a single day. So I was doing the math and I was like, man, from both perspectives, right? Somebody coming in from a cold call is 100% cold, right? Somebody coming in from an ad is 100% cold. But I would rather have 5 appointments per day on my calendar versus 1 appointment a day on my calendar because I don't get paid when I set the appointment. I get paid when I close the deal. So if I have 5 times as many opportunities, I just 5x my business overnight by being able to close that many more deals if all numbers stayed equal. Does that make sense? So I started running the ads and I was getting appointments. You can see right here for like $189, $179, which was fantastic. And as long as I closed like 1 out of 10, that was a client acquisition cost of like $2,000. I break even the first month. And then the next month, because I have a recurring product or a recurring service, I was making money from my ads. So I was like, hell yeah, I want to get as many appointments as possible. So let me ask you a question, right? How long would you keep a salesperson who wasn't pulling their weight, hitting KPIs, or closing deals? How long would you keep that person?
Not very.
Not very long. Okay. Now, what about if you're a manufacturer? If you had inventory that did not sell, would you be reordering that inventory? Or would you just liquidate that stuff as quick as possible to reinvest back into something that was working?
Sure.
Probably liquidate that crap as fast as possible. And you need to hold your advertising to the same ROI-driven accountability. Now, we're not going to get into too many numbers today. Today's going to be more so about designing the ads, but important, if you're not tracking, okay, you don't have any means of knowing what to improve. So I have a tracking sheet I can give you guys if you're running your own advertising that gives you all the numbers that you need to know. But the goal of an ad, they're supposed to say the goal of the advertisement. So the only goal of advertising is to sell. Let me ask you guys a question. Does anybody here have a board of directors or investors in stock who really care about what the advertising looks like? Or is everybody here who's advertising to get more money from their ads? Let me know if that's you.
The latter.
So
Yep.
No board of directors in the CPA firm.
Okay. So your goal with the ads is to sell something, right? Not look good to your C-suite executives, right? Blah, 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 blah. Your job is to sell. And all advertising is salesmanship multiplied. So Alan, I know that you said when you first bought your firm, right, you started cold calling. Do you remember your pitch back in the day when you were cold calling marketing agencies?
Yeah, it wasn't good. It was pretty much, here's what we do. Do you need this?
Okay. So not too different from what I did, right? Hey.
Yeah, it wasn't very slick though. It was very funky.
Mine was too in the beginning, man. Hey, do you need Facebook ads? So all advertising is, okay, if you think about it at the end of the day, right, is it's salesmanship multiplied. The same things, the same processes that you would use sitting across from someone to close a deal are the exact same things that you would use when you're recording a video or writing a sales letter. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So advertising is not this big like pie in the sky thing. Like at the end of the day, all you're doing is you're talking one-to-one, right, to a ton of people at the same time. Does that make sense? Okay. So ads are used to sell somebody clicking to the next page. So for example, Mark, right? He actually finished up his presentation, his video sales letter, his dangerously persuasive video sales letter that's going to get customers crawling over each other to hand him his credit cards, right? So when he creates an ad, right, his goal is going to be to get someone to click to watch the video on the next page. That's the goal of the ad. Okay. The ad can also be used to pre-frame watching the entire video on the next page, right? It can be used to get someone to enter their contact information. For example, if you're looking to collect leads with some kind of, free PDF or a lead form. It can also be used to book a call immediately, right? Or it can be used to educate them before a call, like what we do with retargeting. At the end of the day, though, they're all used to sell something, whether it's the next click, right? Whether it's the pre-frame, whether it's actually purchase something, right? If you're like doing e-commerce or something, or a low ticket product, right? If you guys know Boris, he does the low ticket, book funnel, right? So it's getting people to click over to the page. The page then sells them on the book, right? But all your ads are always selling. There's never a time that your ads will not be selling something. So at the end of the day, there's two types of advertising that you can do, okay? And it doesn't matter if it's referrals, PPC, mailers, carrier pigeon, Facebook ads, TikTok, organic, right? At the end of the day, every type of advertising really falls into two categories. The first one is what's called intent-based advertising, okay? Intent-based advertising. In other words, somebody is going into Google with a problem, okay? Or back in the day, Yellow Pages, okay? If anybody got that reference from earlier, right? Yellow Pages is where people would go to find their problem. Or if they had a problem even before Yellow Pages, they would ask somebody in their circle who they use, what they're doing for it. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's some kind of intent behind it. Now, the other type, this is called interruption-based advertising, okay? Let's see if you guys can come up with some examples. I want to make sure I'm not boring you to death here. What are some examples of interruption-based advertising?
Facebook ads.
Facebook ads, yep.
Tai Lopez.
Tai Lopez, yeah. Now, Tai does both, actually, right? But yes, here in my garage, that was a YouTube interruption ad, yep. What else?
Billboard.
Billboard? Yep, billboard.
Magazine.
Cold calling.
Cold calling, yeah, cold calling, because somebody's not expecting your call, right? Someone's not expecting you to call. You're interrupting their day, and you got to get their attention in those first,
cold email.
Seconds. Cold email, yep, exactly. Even organic, okay? Now, YouTube's an interesting beast. We're not going to do too much on it today, but YouTube is actually the best of both worlds because YouTube has the search engine element. Okay, if you look up what the most searched phrase is, if you look at what the first two words are, it's how to. People go to YouTube to look up how to do things. But on the flip side, if someone goes to YouTube, okay, on the side how they show you all those other videos, that's interruption based. Okay, when you go to their home screen and there's 8 videos below the search bar, that's interruption based. They're trying to catch your attention to watch a video. Make sense?
Yep.
So when it comes to specifically intent based, okay, I pulled the search. This was actually this morning, July 7th, 2025 at 8 a.m. I pulled the search for tax planning and tax advisor near me. Now, in the entire United States, okay, for tax planning, your average monthly searches is between 1,000 and 10,000 searches, okay? Now, here's what sucks. You don't know if this is a 3rd grade teacher who's doing it. You don't know if this is a billionaire searching for it. You don't know if this is a competitor trying to see what it is that you do, okay? And so if we take that number, let's just say it's on the high end. Let's say 10,000, okay? And this was the most searched, tax advisor near me. So if you guys are thinking of positioning, maybe think about tax advisor versus tax planner, because it sounds like tax advisor people resonate with more than tax planner. So anyway, we can see right here, okay, that these are the amounts that people are bidding on these keywords for paid Google PPC. But if we just take this 10,000, okay, and we divide that by 50 states, do you know what that brings it to? How many searches per state?
Was that 2,000?
200.
200.
10,000 divided by 50 states gives us 200 searches per state. But now you have to understand how the Google algorithm works, right? Because now they're going to go based on your geography. Where are you based on? Is this tax planner near the person who's searching? Okay. And that's in a given month. Okay. So you gotta factor that into consideration. So when it comes to intent-based, if you guys remember the buyer's pyramid basically states that in any given market, 3% are ready to buy now, 7% are open to buying, 3% aren't even thinking about it, 30% don't think they're interested, and then the bottom 30 already know that they're not interested in what you have to offer. Okay. So for the most part, Google and intent-based only captures this 3% who are ready to buy at this very moment. Okay. Now that's a really, really small 3%. Okay. Especially if we go based on the search numbers, right? And so these are the 5 stages of awareness, right? This is basically how someone goes through purchasing a product. At first, they're unaware, then they become problem aware, right? Then they're solution aware, then product aware, and then when they're most aware, this is basically when they're a customer, okay? And so the problem with the 3% is that they're basically only targeting product aware and most aware. So for example, right, nobody's going to look up tax planner near me if they don't know that a tax planner is the one who's going to solve or let me actually backtrack here. Okay. So tax planner is the product. The solution, right, is a tax plan. The problem is that they're overpaying on taxes. Okay. So they're not going to go and search for a tax planner near me without first going through these other stages of the market. Does that make sense? Yay, nay, maybe say?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, cool. So now if we take a look at the American population, there's 340 million people in America alone. All right. Now, of that, 30 million of these are business owners, 4% of which gross over $1 million a year. Okay. So that gives you 1.2 million business owners grossing over 7 figures. Now, for most people here, are those pretty prime suspects for you? Are those pretty prime prospects?
Yes.
So with interruption advertising, you don't wait for someone to go through this entire process, okay? You get to come to them where they're at. So whether they're at, they don't even realize that they're overpaying on taxes, whether they know that they have a tax problem and they're looking to get it fixed, you can now get yourself in front of these people at any given time. Okay. You can target these people on these platforms, or if you want to go old school, right? Direct mail, mailers, postcards, etc. Right. And you can actually put yourself in front of those people as opposed to them going through that entire education process. Okay. Now, as you can tell, I am very bullish on interruption advertising. Okay. In fact, one time I paid a buddy of mine, he's like an SEO guy, right? Search engine optimization. So I paid him to redo my website, and I think I paid him maybe like $1,000 or $2,000 for like 6 months. So he charged me $10K for the website and, $2K, or let's just go $1K over 6 months. So I'm out like $16K. Okay. Take a guess, how many clients, right? Or even just how many searches, right? Do you guys think, this is back when I had the restaurant marketing agency, how many leads or clients do you think that I got from the search engine optimization?
Not much.
Any guess?
1 a month.
So have you guys ever gone out of your way to look up tax planner marketer?
No.
Tax planner. Like people like yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you have.
Well,
No.
What
Not
did they-
specifically for tax planning.
So let me ask you this. We have 2 people on this call who have used Tax Pro Marketer. How did you guys engage them? Did they reach out to you? Did you see some of their marketing online? Did you search out of your way and say, hey, I need, someone to help me advertise my accounting firm?
I think I heard about him on a podcast.
Okay. Mark, how about you?
I saw him speak at CTC.
Okay. There you go. So that being said, there was nobody looking up restaurant marketing agencies. Okay. But I didn't think about that, right? The SEO guy was like, oh, dude, there's so much search traffic. There's 2 billion searches a day on Google. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I paid this guy like 16 grand. I didn't get a single fucking client from it. But that's not his fault, right? I did not do the market research. I did not look up how many people were actually searching for restaurant advertising agencies. But guess what? It's a big fat fucking 0. Okay? So that's why I'm so bullish on interruption advertising, is because you don't have to wait for it. And especially with you, okay, you guys are not in what's called a demand capture business. Okay? Demand capture. Has anybody watched my 5 keys video sales letter yet? Okay, there's actually some really good value in that, just FYI. But basically, when it comes to demand capture, okay, so let's just go back real quick. Let's talk about the search results. Do you guys know how many people in the entire United States search for plumbers near me on a monthly basis?
I'd say a lot.
Hundreds, tens of hundreds of thousands.
Over 1 million people every single month search for plumbers near me. Over 1 million people per month search for plumbers near me. So in that type of business, okay, that makes sense to go and do demand capture. Because guess what? If somebody doesn't have a problem with their bathroom, they're not going to go to Google to fix their bathroom. Right? If someone doesn't perceive that they have a problem with their taxes, which a lot of people don't, they're not going to go out of their way to search it. Now, these numbers are actually up. So if I had to guess, right, the market is starting to evolve with the amount of advertisers out there now. People are like doing more research on tax planning, okay? But for the most part, that's still a pretty small fucking number, right? 10,000 searches a month. If you divide that by 50 states, it's 200 a state. And that doesn't even, how many cities are there in California? Definitely more than 200, right? So you're going to be getting less than like 1 search per city in a given month. Make sense? So that's why I'm so bullish on advertising. Now, writing an ad used to be half the battle, okay? Okay, yeah, the only point of an ad, that was supposed to go earlier in the slides. So the other half was getting it in front of your ideal market with super refined targeting, okay? Mark, I know you are a Joe Polish fan. Now, Joe Polish, right, he comes from Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, and they talk about direct mail. So with direct mail, okay, the nice thing is that you would have these lists that you could essentially rent and mail your letters to, okay? Well, now with the online advertising, that changed, right? Google was kind of one of the first online advertisers, and they did it based on keywords. Well, then with the advent of social media, right, people would like things like pages for dogs or pages for hunting or pages for tax planning, right? And learning things about finance. And so what they were able to do is they were able to group people based on the interests that they express on those platforms. So you went from being able to target lists to then targeting keywords to now you're able to target interests. However, with that being said, we're now into another evolution where instead of being able to target all of these interests, it's now going into what's called broad targeting, okay? So with broad targeting, as you can see here, targeting broadly essentially means that you're mostly relying on our delivery system to find the best people to show your ad to. This approach can lead us to finding potential customers you never would have known about otherwise, even though you still have to use at least a few basic targeting parameters. It's a good approach if you're not sure who you want to target. Okay. And it's really going this way for two reasons. But the main one is that at the end of the day, what do these platforms sell? What do they provide aside from advertising? What's the new gold mine? Data. That's what they sell. Okay. And who do you think has more data on your target customer, you or the platforms?
Platform, for sure.
The platforms. Do you guys know this? Do you want to know something crazy? Have you guys ever, when you're scrolling, can you guys see my phone or no? Is it just my screen? Can you see my phone?
No. Hold on.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. I forgot I'm not using my camera. I was pointing it to the camera. So when you scroll through, here's what's crazy. Okay. So you're scrolling through this, right? Do you know that they monitor your eye movement and your facial features? They monitor how long you spend on each post. They monitor if you read the post or if you don't. Okay. And guess what else they monitor? Have you guys ever downloaded a social media app and then you gave it access to your microphone? Nope.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they monitor with that?
That's how you get all those ads about what you talk about.
Exactly, because they know what you talk about. Okay. So all that to be said, the new targeting, okay, is what is said in the ads and the landing page. In other words, your copy, okay, and your creative. This is like the biggest shift, the biggest piece to making your ads work now, okay, is it's more than ever what is said in your ads and your landing page, okay? Because again, back in the day, you used to just be able to pick, hey, I want to show it to this person. So you could go in, you could do all these buttons and these hacks and these, cost caps, bid caps, right? Exclusion targeting, all these fancy hacks. You could set up, 1,000 ad sets at $2 a day, okay? It's going away from all that. It's evolving, right? So there's no more like tricks to make advertising work. You have to get good at what's being said in the ads and the landing page. In other words, your copy, okay, which is the psychology of marketing, okay? Human beings, they have been behaving the same way since fucking dinosaurs, right? They're motivated by two things, pain and pleasure, okay? They want to get away from the dinosaur so that they can save their life, right? And they want to eat the berry because it's going to help them live on, right? That's the pleasure, okay? But the other thing, when it comes to ads specifically, okay, is that ads more than ever are going towards machine learning. And at the end of the day, in order to make machine learning work, you need to become a master at the data signals you send back to the platform, okay? So again, back in the day, you could put your ad in front of someone who's interested in agriculture, okay? And you could select things like, hey, I want this person to have an American Express Black Card, and I want them to have an 800 plus credit score, okay? But you don't have that same capability now. So what you have to do is you have to get really good at filtering out shitty data signals from good data signals, because the machine learning, it's just a machine. It operates based off of inputs and outputs. It doesn't know the difference between a good input and a bad output unless you tell it. So just as a recent example, Win launched some new ads. Win's going after some ERC stuff. Win. What was the thing that I told you about what you need to put in your ads and your presentation?
A lot. Yeah. Who it's for, who it's not for.
Right? Why?
Again, so it's a flywheel of telling the algorithm who should be getting it.
Yeah.
Fine.
Exactly. Okay. If somebody unqualified comes in and books a call, the algorithm doesn't know the difference between a good data signal and a bad data signal unless you tell it. So what it's going to do is, because you let that person book the call, okay, or you weren't specific enough in your advertising, right? That person is now going to send that data signal back to the algorithm. And the algorithm is going to show ads to more people like that. Does that make sense? So you have to get really good at filtering out good data from bad data. Okay. So,
sorry, Dan, quick question to interrupt.
Go ahead.
So along those lines, is there a way to undo that? Let's say you let bad apples in. Whoops. Yep. How do you fix that? Right.
Yeah, you just want to essentially restart the campaign.
Oh.
You'll want to duplicate it. And if that doesn't work, you'll just want to create a new pixel and then have that pixel in a new campaign.
Got it.
Yep. Okay. The pixel, right? The pixel is the cookie. It's like the translator, right? What's happening on the website gets translated back to the platform from the cookie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to targeting, okay, you really don't even need any of this anymore. It's important when it comes to like crafting your ads and your stories, which we'll review here in a little bit. Okay. But essentially, your occupation, if you're going really niche specific, their age, location, etc. And then you have your psychographics. Okay. Now this is really like the makeup of a human being. This is their beliefs, their problems, fears, desires. So as you know, I always talk about there's two types of niches. There's industry niches, but then there's problem niches, right? When someone reaches 8 figures, whether it's HVAC company, an e-com company, an accounting firm, like somebody who reaches 8 figures, or let's just call it, 30 employees, give or take, they're probably going to start to have similar problems. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. So we can talk to those problems as opposed to just the, hey, if you're Alan, what was your old niche? You going after like construction or something?
HVAC.
HVAC. Okay. So let's cover the anatomy of a successful ad. So every ad really has 3 parts to it. There's your hook, which is the first 5 to 15 seconds of an ad. This can also be considered your lead. Okay. There's the content, which is the body of an ad, right? Are you putting in some type of education? Are you putting in some type of story? Are you putting in some type of case study? Are you putting in some type of tax strategy that somebody can use? And then the call to action, what you want them to do next. So in Mark's example, he's recording his VSL. Okay. He's going to have his VSL on the landing page. What do you think Mark will want to do in his ad for the CTA?
Apply.
Not yet. Okay. In the ad, remember, we have to get them off the platform first. Okay. So what you're going to do in your CTA is you're going to say, hey, I put together a free video or a free training. Okay. Just click the button, check it out on the next page. And if it makes sense, then apply to work with my team. Okay. But we want to give them direction. We want to clearly map out the next steps that they're going to take so that they can have that pre-framed in their brain. Do you guys remember how we talked about the reptilian brain and how that works? So the reptilian brain, right, that's your fight or flight. So at the end of the day, your reptilian brain is constantly monitoring like 10 million things a second, right? Basically seeing if it's a threat, right? If it's a friend or if it's a foe. And so if you can make it easier to process, less energy to consume by the reptilian brain, okay, then what's going to happen is it will have more energy put towards the actual message coming in. Okay. But the other thing that's helpful with it is that typically when it's more energy consumption, like eating food, for example, is less energy consuming than running away from a tiger. Right. So from the reptilian brain, you got to remember this stuff has not evolved that much yet. Okay. We're still operating off the same operating system from, hundreds of years ago. So it doesn't know the difference between a tiger, right? And, I don't know, your alarm going off in the morning. Okay. It still creates the same chemical balance in your body of that stress. Okay. So you want to think about that when you're creating advertisements. So for the call to actions, instead of being really ambiguous, okay, you want to tell them exactly what to do, exactly what they're going to see. Okay. Exactly what it's going to cover. And then after that, what it's going to do next, right? Or what they should do next. You want to pre-frame that next step. Does that make sense? So you want to be very, very direct, clear, and concise when it comes to telling them what to do. Okay. So there's 6 successful hooks. And this actually comes from a book called Great Leads. It's one of my favorite advertising books of all time. And it's from one of the consultants of $1 billion information publishing company in the financial and health niche. Okay. Niches, I should say. And essentially it comes down to 6 types of leads. And these were the ones that they found that produced the best results. So there's a direct offer. Okay. There's a promise, which is like the benefit that you'll get. There's problem solution. Okay. Hey, are you overpaying on taxes? Right. Or is is Uncle Sam burning a hole in your pocket? There's a big secret. Okay. There's a proclamation. Does anybody ever see all these financial ads that are like, the Black Plague of America is coming? You guys see those things? Or ex Wall Street, ex Wall Street legend predicts next Tesla stock. Have you guys seen any of those?
Yep.
So that's a proclamation ad. Or Rebecca Walzer. Anybody know Rebecca Walzer, the tax attorney? You guys have to get hit with her ads. Blonde chick. No?
I don't know.
So she uses a lot of proclamation, right? So like when the debt, did we hit 37 trillion in debt? Or was it 39?
I think you're talking about the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 37
trillion. Okay, so we just hit the debt ceiling, right? So a proclamation style ad would be something along the lines of like, hey, we just hit the debt ceiling, right? As you know, taxes aren't getting any lower. And where do you think they're going to get the money to repay back this debt from? High income earners. Why? Because there's not enough money from low income. Okay, so it's proclaiming something. Another really good example is, what's another good example of the proclamation? Oh, well, one that's going right now is the big, beautiful bill. Okay. With all the bonus depreciation and the tax credits coming back, like there was a ton of people proclaiming stuff before it got passed. I'm sure you guys saw all that, right? But this is essentially news stuff, right? Like here's what's going to happen. Okay. And then the most powerful and the broadest appeal, because not only does it hit the logical side, but it also hits the emotional side subconsciously, is, drum roll please, a story. Okay. A story. And if you think about why it's so successful, a story is because before modern technology and the Gutenberg printing press, right, we used to transmit information through stories. Why do you think they came up with Greek gods, for example? They used Greek gods, okay, to communicate weather, for example, or what happens if you aren't good and you go to hell, right? You go to see Hades. I think that's his name, right? Or Zeus, right? Or Poseidon, okay? And they have these different stories of how things came to be, right? So it's interesting because instead of just telling a fact, right? Facts tell, stories sell, because stories are a little bit different. It allows the listener to put themselves in the shoes of the person telling the story. So let me give you guys a quick example. Did anybody feel empathy for me when I was telling you about how my father figure basically told me I wasn't going to amount to anything? Did anybody feel some rage burn up inside of themselves because you've had a similar scenario before?
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if I was just yeah, my instructor told me that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. That's like a fact, right? Yeah, he said I wasn't going to be able to make it. But because I told it to you in a story, you guys were able to put yourselves inside of my shoes, okay? And whether you were there with me or not, you still have other things that you can pull from because you're emotional creatures, right? So that's why I like to use stories. And I didn't used to be this way, right? I was very much more so hey, just, sell, have a good sales process, have a really good offer, which is important, right? But I think especially when it comes to the advertising side, right, of getting people's initial attention, stories are huge. Okay, stories and news, aka proclamation, Those are like the two biggest types of ads. And so this was actually a picture directly from the Great Leads book. And so you can see, right, it actually matches up with the stages of market awareness. Okay. So if you want to get someone who's unaware or problem aware, you typically want to go with a proclamation or a story-based lead, right? Or hook, we could call it, because those are the widest appealing types of hooks. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, cool. So your job is to become a mad scientist. David Ogilvy, who was like the father of modern advertising, he said on average 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. When you have written your headline, you have spent 80 cents out of your dollar. Now, this was back in the day when they were doing magazine advertising. So they would do something called advertorials, because the best ads, do you guys know what the best ads are? The best ads are the ones that don't seem like ads at all. So back in the day, they used to write these things called advertorials because it looked like an article or an editorial inside of the magazine. It blended in with the magazine. You couldn't tell that it was an ad aside from, advertorial in little letters stuck at the top. So it blended in. You couldn't even tell that it was an ad, right? So you don't want to hear things like, oh, your ads are so good. Like I always hated this when I was on sales calls when I was getting started. And, somebody would want to be really nice. So they were like, you're a great salesman, man. And I'm like, really, if I was a great salesman, you'd have fucking bought the thing from me. So quit lying to me, right? And just tell me that you don't want what I'm selling. But anyway, so you don't necessarily want to hear like, oh, that ad is so good. More so, you want to hear things like, oh man, like I never knew that, right? Or, oh, wow, that story is really powerful. And so if you can make your ads blend in with the platform. So for example, is everybody here on Instagram?
Yeah,
I can't see your hands. I don't know why I'm raising my hand. Let me know if you're on Instagram or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys probably click on people's stories. Okay. Well, as you're going through people's stories, like you can pretty much smell when it's an ad, right? Or same thing if you're going through on your feed, right? You can smell when someone's like, it's a post versus an ad.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can make it blend in with the platform more, then typically that's also going to really help boost your conversion rates. Okay. So if you have a really good organic post, like Mark does a lot on organic, at least you used to, I don't know if you still do, but if you have something that like really popped off, typically that also works pretty well as an ad. Okay. So just food for thought. So here's the elements to test of your ad in order of importance. So the biggest one is your offer or your claim. Okay, your offer or your claim. So David Ogilvy was actually the guy who brought Dove soap to the market. Okay, he was the guy that brought Dove soap to the market. And I'm trying to find, I actually had it, I meant to get this pulled up before. But basically, Dove came to them and he was like, yeah, I'm going to, here we go. Cool. So, 1 second here. Okay. So, one technique, I'm going to show you guys how he tested the offer or the claim for Dove. We're talking about Dove soap, okay? Like the body wash that I use every single morning after my 6 a.m. workout with my personal trainer, okay? Dove soap, right? Another technique is to show consumers cards on which we have printed various promises, asking them to select the one which would most likely to make them buy the product. Here are the results of one such test. Cleans deep into pores, prevents dryness, is a beauty treatment. So can you guys see all this stuff here? Are you guys able to see that? So basically, it goes through all the different tests that they did, right? From this voting came one of Helena Rubinstein's most successful face creams. We christened it Deep Cleanser, thus building the winning promise into the name of the product, right? So they basically took like the 10 biggest benefits, tested which one performed the best, and then they went and had the market tell them which one they wanted. So this is the exact same thing that I do as well. So you're offering your claim, okay, or your angle is the biggest thing to test. Next, you have your content, right? Your hook. That's the first 3 to 5 seconds of your ad, okay? Because again, 80% of your advertising dollar, right, is spent on your hook or your headline. Then you have the actual content. This is the body, right? Then you have your landing page. And then finally, you have your like headlines or primary text in the actual ads manager. Does that make sense?
Oh,
cool. So here are the copy and paste ad scripts and swipe files, which I'll post this in the group for you guys. But just some recommended reading for you. Great Leads by Mark Ford, Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, Influence by Robert Cialdini, Tested Advertising Methods by John Caples, Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins, and then literally everything Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, or David Ogilvy, this guy right here who took Dove to the markets.